Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. John Assessor, Chairman of the 911 Commission. It's July 12th at actually still 9 o'clock. So I'll call the meeting to order. First order of business is approval of minutes of the commission meeting of April 5th, 2024. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
Yeah, Dudek, so move.
Thank you. Okay, great. Are there any corrections or amendments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Sounds like it was unanimously approved. Thank you very much. Great job again, Bonnie. We have an opportunity now for public comment. There will be additional opportunity at the end of the meeting. Is there anyone here who wishes to use this opportunity to share? Hearing none, we can get into our various reports, starting with the Deset project update.
Good morning.
More, Mark.
Hearing me and seeing me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Good morning. My name is Stanley Dombrowski, and I am the Emergency Telecommunications Manager in the state of Connecticut. I support the Director, Clayton Northgraves, who manages the statewide Emergency Telecommunications Organization and Land Mobile Radio Network. I coordinate the use of resources, technologies, and people to reach strategic goals and provide oversight and vendor management for the state of Connecticut NG911 program. NG911 laptops. DSET plans to take delivery of 6 additional laptops in the third quarter of this year. These are for use across the remaining Viper 2 and Viper 3 PSAPs for temporary relocation of operations. Rapid Deploy Eclipse Analytics and Reporting. Rapid Deploy Eclipse has improved how the text calls are managed in the platform. In reporting, library summary reference sheet and text volume by period now show the total number of text calls as opposed to the total number of messages. Also, I advise PSAPs to stay logged into the Rapid Deploy Eclipse dashboard to quickly switch to call search for your PSAP to see the call when missed by Power 911 or that show as abandoned. Eclipse Analytics offers another way to see information on the caller, including mapping location. Continue to report the issue to the NCC for AT&T dispatch on the call handling side of the equipment. Rapid SOS, the last commission meeting update indicated individual workstation MapFlex displays will change to display the Intrado MapFlex integrated version of Rapid SOS. After careful review, leadership decided that the installation and use of the Intrado integrated version of Rapid SOS will not occur due to network security concerns. All pilot installations have changed back to normal. Currently, DSET leadership is reviewing 3 mapping solutions to replace Intrado MapFlex 911 that is unsupported in Viper 7. That decision will coincide with the overall plans to upgrade to the Viper 7 call handling application. Viper 7, the state of Connecticut is evaluating a proposal to upgrade to the next version of the Intrado Viper call handling solution. This next version includes features like agent roaming that allow dispatchers to log in any PSAP to function as if they were at their primary location. Additionally, PSAP to caller communications has been greatly enhanced with PSAP initiated video, call taker, and caller capability to exchange files that can be viewed from the Power 911 application. Location sharing available from the caller video user interface, and much more. like automatic detection and conversion of incoming text language, if different from the call taker's defined language. Roadmap items like voice transcription of recording, and geofencing provides the capability to set up a virtual perimeter around the geographic location of a major incident and direct calls from this geofenced area to a specific set of call takers. That concludes my update. Are there any questions, please?
Are there any questions for Stanley? Thank you for your thorough update. So now I lost my agenda. Here we go. All right, next order is land mobile radio update.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Scott Wright. I'm the Senior Telecommunications Engineer 2 for the state of Connecticut. I report directly to Clayton in support of our statewide land mobile radio solution. Go ahead and share my screen. So good morning. I wanted to brief the commissioners on some updates on where we are with the network. This is a system that is highly in flux every single day. And we work tremendously and work with our 911 partners on making this happen for each of our municipalities in the state. Some statistics to talk about. In the last quarter, we had a little over 27 million push-to-talk, 27.5 million push-to-talks in the system. That's an 8.3% increase from the second quarter last year. Significantly, we had a 65% increase in the trunk system push-to-talks over the second quarter last year, and an almost 60% increase in the amount of trunked airtime from last year. This is a very significant increase and represents the increased number of people and agencies using the trunked radio system. We've also had a 21% increase in the number of trunked talk groups in use, going up to 858. Very significantly, we added 2,562 radios to the system in the last quarter alone. We had 2,673 alias changes for a total of 5,235 radios provisioned on the system in just the last quarter. We use some management software that is specific to this application, and there is no way that we'd be able to manage this kind of workload without it. And this is what assists our network operations center and network control center operators in being able to assist us with that network. Some significant activity to talk about with the Department of Transportation. We continue with their subscriber deployment. They are deploying approximately 3,500 subscribers to pretty much every vehicle in their fleet. They have arranged for the implementation of subsystem expansions in certain areas of the state, and that's at our C, K, D, and L subsystems. We have a number of folks that are waiting for our K subsystem to be expanded, and we're looking forward to that because that will greatly enhance our users in that area. And they're doing some operations center console deployments, and that is going to tremendously improve interoperability with our DOT and our PSAPs. As we've noted in the media in the last couple of weeks, there have been some rather tragic events involving DOT as well as the state police, and interoperability with DOT is absolutely critical. Some other significant activity, Fairfield County, down in the Demis Region 1, we have some very significant subsystem coverage enhancement. Particularly with our towns, Fairfield partners, Fairfield, Norwalk, Weston, Wilton. The G subsystem is going from 9 sites to 18. What's significant about this is we are not expanding the coverage footprint for this area. We are enhancing coverage. So we are very significantly enhancing the portable level coverage down in Fairfield County in Region 1 for our users based on user need. And this is primarily funded through our partner agencies. Some integrations, we have Yale, adding 5 sites in the New Haven area, very significant in building coverage in the New Haven area. We have New London, it's coming on board. with consoles and subscribers, and we have mental health and addiction services also coming on board with consoles and subscribers. New London is a great story to tell, with SailFest occurring tomorrow, weather permitting. Years ago, when we first started getting involved in SailFest, it was a very diverse set of users, and most of them were not interoperable. You look at that today, and you look at the planning for that event today, and all of our law enforcement folks, with the exception of one, can talk on the same talk group. And that will be fixed hopefully next year, where every law enforcement agency can talk on the same talk group. All of the fire subscribers are going to be able to talk on the same talk group. And when you think about the coordination of an event of that size and that magnitude, this is an incredible change for them, and has been operationally efficient as well. One of the highlights that we want to talk about from the last quarter is the community colleges. The community colleges have formed their own now accredited police department. The community college system is comprised of a bunch of different campuses throughout the state with a number of local systems. So each one of the colleges has their own radio system, and it's typically a different type of technology than we use with the state system. And working with our team and their folks, we have crafted a solution that has now been implemented that accommodates both their local and statewide requirements with one subscriber unit. So their police officers can simply change channels and go from statewide coverage to local coverage using two different types of radio systems, and be able to talk with each other. And that's a pretty incredible accomplishment, and one of the first in the country of its nature. We're working with sustainment and life cycle. As with all technology, there's an end date to it, and working with our manufacturers, we're developing a life cycle plan to assist with our sustainment and life cycle planning efforts. This translates to budget, and we need to know where we need to budget, and we need to know how much we need to budget. So we're working on that, and that takes a great deal of time. My contact information, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to contact me. We're available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If I'm not available, one of our other engineers is, and we're always available through our Network Operations Center and our great folks at the NCC. Happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions for Scott?
Yeah, this is Frank over in Bridgeport. I just had a question regarding the community colleges. Is Housatonic also included in that? Only reason I'm asking is because we've recently had an incident there, and a direct line of contact I believe would be beneficial moving forward at some point to kind of bridge the communication, foregoing a phone call that might put a little bit of delay on a critical incident.
So the Housatonic Community College is included, and they are working on integrations with the city of Bridgeport. And that highlights one of the reasons why we're doing this with them, is that they are similarly situated throughout the entire state with other police departments. Waterbury, they had an incident in Waterbury that they needed to talk to Waterbury, so we're working with Waterbury. But we are working on also making a interoperability resource available to those communities that are on the network, such as Bridgeport, Waterbury, Middletown, to be able to talk to the community colleges directly.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. We can move on then to the next item, which is a Network Control Center.
Good morning, everyone. This is Julie Gatson, and I am the Network Control Center Operations Manager. Just let me know once you are able to see my screen there.
We got it.
Awesome, awesome. Updates will be relatively quick today. And Scott, by the way, thank you. I loved your presentation. I always love hearing Scott's updates. So DSET NCC updates and highlights. So as talked about in previous presentations, we kind of had a bucket of or a category or item of tickets that would come through that were just kind of labeled DSET or NG911 other. And so we try to review those every month or every quarter to just kind of see how we can better qualify those. And based on those reviews, we've added 3 new types, which is NG911 access for like folks that are having trouble logging on. NG911 carrier related. This may be issues that the PSAPs are reporting trouble with calls, but it turns out to be a carrier related issue, such as with Frontier, or it could be carrier outages. And then there's the NG911 deployment, which would predominantly at this point involve requests for deployment of the laptops at this point. Clayton and myself and AT&T have been working on protocols to ensure better resolution information to provide both the NCC and the PSAP. So we've kind of all been working together to try to just, again, increase that communications between all entities to make sure that issues are getting resolved in a timely manner. Clayton and I also actually are working with a representative, or will be working with a representative from the FCC to help improve the standards for the carrier outage notifications provided by the carriers. There's a new standard with the FCC where they are supposed to send out notifications, the carriers themselves, when they have an outage in their network that could potentially affect 911 for any reason, or calls to 911 for any reason, I should say. And so those notifications are coming into the NCC. So we're working with them to improve the standard that they have right now to make things more clear. We're trying to not flood PSAPs with notifications, but be able to provide them with appropriate information in a timely manner when they need it. NCC is also assisting Deset with notifications regarding the PSDN network refresh. I know John is not here today, but as they're planning the refresh of that PSDN fiber network, we're going to need to make sure we're communicating out to the PSAPs when maintenance is going to occur, potential outages, et cetera. And so NCC will be assisting DSET with that. And then just a friendly reminder for folks to please remember to call in their issues with the 911 system to the Network Control Center, as opposed to calling the AT&T Resolution Center directly. You know, we work really hard to help get you guys the follow-ups and the quicker resolutions, and it also helps with us to keep DSET informed on what's going on with the system at any time. So if they need to step in and intervene as well, they can. And here is our ticket stats for the last quarter. It was actually a relatively slow quarter in regards to tickets. We only had 63. So these are the PSAPs that had reported issues. And again, this will be attached and emailed out to everybody. And then this is that breakout by item type. And interestingly enough, while they're the largest portion of tickets related to the applications itself, you know, there was a large increase. As we're qualifying it now, we can see where those carrier outage notifications come into play with carrier related items. Obviously, there's a good bit of maintenance that goes on, as just like Scott talked about with the CLMR, and the same thing occurs with the 911 system. You know, we have to do continual maintenance to keep it at peak performance. But there's a little glimpse into the type of tickets we're processing. And as always, here's our contact information. You know, we ask that everybody use the NCC main numbers to start with, but if something needs escalation or if you need further assistance with anything, we have NCC admins available at your service. And with that, I open to any questions.
Any questions for Julie?
Comment, please.
Sure.
Hi, this is Stan. Along the lines of the carrier notifications, we've been struggling for quite some time on providing relevant information that the carrier passes along. Part of that struggle, and I think it's just excellent to try to enforce the way they word their outages. Part of the problem is that when they mention 911 in their outage, it tends to make it very difficult to relay their version versus an actual 911 outage. Now, a carrier's outage affects the ability for them to call their friends anywhere a phone call will dial, and certainly 911. but rarely, if ever, if they can make it to the 911 platform, will there be any problem handling that call? So we really struggle with that, passing that message along. And like I say, 99.9% when the carrier has an outage, it does not affect the ability of the 911 platform to process the call. And I'll just add, we welcome any input to the way wording sent to the PSAPs would make the most sense, would be the most relevant when the carrier themselves state that they're having an outage. So I think Julie and her team are doing an excellent job in relaying that information and making timely yet not excessive notifications. But I just wanted to point out that we do consider those notifications important, and we welcome any input as to what would make them the most relevant for you. So thank you for that.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Dan.
and yep,
Yeah, I was
and
going to say Clayton probably has a couple
Yeah,
comments
so,
to add.
just a couple, just building off of what Stan said. So, yeah, I just want to let everyone know that I know those notifications are coming from the NCC, but they're literally a copy and paste from the carriers when they do experience an outage. And that is a result of an FCC ruling that went through. And myself and Scott Wright were at a NICSWIC meeting, and there happened to be an attorney from the FCC there and gave a presentation, completely separate topic from what we're talking about now. But I raised my hand and I let him know that, these notifications are becoming the bane of everybody's existence because what the carriers have done is they've taken that ruling and they're doing the absolute bare minimum with notifications because they don't want folks to know when they have outages. They want to give as little information as possible. So that said, and just to highlight what Julia said earlier, so I explained to the FCC attorney, how frequently and how poorly the information was contained in those messages, and he was incredulous. He had no idea. He did say that the language had very good intentions, but he's absolutely willing to work with us to try to make that right. So Julie and myself will be meeting with him in coming weeks to explain, in better detail than I did at that meeting. But our hope is to hopefully get this kind of tightened up on a national level. And I just want to also add in that Julie and I did have numerous conversations, as well as John Benedetto, who's one of our 911 commissioners, and that relationship is greatly appreciated with AT&T's GNOC, if I remember that acronym correctly, to try to get a little bit better information from them. So we do appreciate John's efforts on that and his assistance with that. And again, we look to try to, and again, this is not unique to Connecticut. When I mentioned that, this was a national meeting, and almost every state expressed similar frustrations with those notifications. So we're working on it. We're hoping we can change it. And Julie, thanks very much for your presentation. And if anybody has any questions, I'll certainly answer them.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Not hearing any questions. Last chance. Once again, Connecticut leads the nation in getting the system fine-tuned. Thank you. So we can move on to legislation. Fortunately, we're safe. They're not in session.
Yeah. There's nothing that we're tracking right now, so nothing to report.
Good. PSEP grants.
Good morning. Mark
Good morning.
Gorka, planning specialist. In the fourth quarter of the 23-24 state fiscal year, one regional emergency communications center was approved for a total of 2 individual capital expense grants for a total of $17,618. The funding supports emergency telecommunications through the purchase or replacement of a CAD GIS data set and a VHF simulcast base station. 16 grants have been awarded in the fiscal year for 23-24 for a total of $781,099. The 24-25 cycle began on July 1st, and applications will be accepted through April 30th of 2025. An updated application is available on our website, and if anybody has any questions about the capital expense grant, they can reach out to me.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
Any questions right now, or you can contact Mark directly? Okay, we can move on to training.
Good morning. This is Peter Luco from Deset. The telecommunicator training. So far this year, we've had 5 classes, and we're on track to have probably 4 or 5 more between now and the end of the year. We continue to use our backup PSAP training center, CSEC, for these classes. We've had, so far, we've recertified 159 dispatchers and certified 43 new dispatchers. And that's kind of all for training. Any questions I can answer?
Any questions for Peter? Thank you very much. I guess we can move on to governance, PSDN governance.
Yeah, so John Mascadrelli, who usually reports out, is on vacation this week. So we submitted his report in writing to the commission.
So that's in your emails. If you have any follow-ups, you can go to Clayton and he'll help you. So we can move on to the GIS updates. Your mic is not on.
If I had a nickel for every time. All right.
Dan.
Hi, this is Dan Shia. I'm the GIS coordinator for the Connecticut's 911 system. I'm just going to share my screen. Bear with me one second. Let's see, generic. Oh, let's do that. Sorry, give me one second. So, so we continue to update the 911 system for the state of Connecticut. As you can see on these maps, we continue to update the all our streets, all the ranging on the streets, and some of the locations, as we've always done. We continue to add new address points to the 911 system for our mapping purposes. The red ones on this map, which unfortunately it might be hard to see, but are all the new locations that we've added since April. We continue to improve or maintain our address matching for the 911 system. So we're still at 99.46% of all of our addresses in the 911 system are mapping at that level for landline calls, and then 99.53 when you include the address points in that. We continue to update the Master Street address guide with our vendor Intrado. As of July 1st, we're up to about 4,435 update requests that we've either instituted ourselves or we've approved as the MSAG coordinator for the 911 system. Continue to work on wireless spatial routing. This map was the same thing that I showed in the last meeting. It's just a made-up example. We've been improving it. We're still at about 80% of our calls are on 911 system are spatially routed now, so they go wherever the map tells it to go to. We're finding little issues here and there, and we're always fixing them. We continue to provide GIS mapping support for the agency. The big one is we supply the state police with their mapping data, including the street center line that we use for mapping. And then we support the GIS for a CT alert. We've been providing Everbridge with a copy of the alley database every month. That's the same data that we use in the 911 system. Viewers of me normally would see something about the GIS Council right here, but we have added a new segment to this commission meeting, and Alfredo Herrera, the GIO for the state of Connecticut, will now be doing a presentation every time on new information. So I'm sorry to steal your thunder, John, but I figured I'd introduce him. So Alfredo, if you are available, I will stop sharing and you can take it away.
Will do. So I'll get my presentation shared. Just a second.
There you go.
All right, cool. All right, so I'm Alfredo Herrera. I am the Geographic Information Officer for the state of Connecticut. I am housed within OPM in the Data and Policy Analytics Division. Also on the call are my two GIS coordinators, Carl Zimmerman and Ashley Benitez. And together we we've been around for about 2 years now. Started in the beginning of 2022 after passage of Public Act 21-2, creating my job and the GIS office, and assigning us to OPM to kind of do our activities. From there, we have a number of responsibilities here in the GIS office. As you can see, data coordination, open data, supporting economic development, outreach and training, ortho imagery, guidance and standards, data processing, and broadband mapping. And we've been trying to kind of take a plug away at each of these responsibilities as we kind of go about our business. And as you will see in a second, we will go through some of those highlighted accomplishments in those activities. Just a quick update. Kind of overview. So here is the org chart for us in the GIS office. There's 5 of us, and even though there's only 5 of us, we have a lot of capacity and we can do a lot of things with the GIS. So we just want to start off by saying that we are here as a resource. We can help, and we will dive into doing. So first and foremost, we published an open data clearinghouse for GIS specifically to kind of be in parallel to the open data portal that is at data.ct.gov. So this geodata portal is at geodata.ct.gov. It is an ArcGIS based clearinghouse that was built in collaboration with Esri. We share primarily partner agency data to make it all available in a single place. Not to say that they don't already have it in their own place, but we are like the single one-stop shop, if you will, of all of that GIS data that is federated with us. And we are updating the site regularly, and like I said, we've been up for about 2 years. We will be doing a refresh of the site here pretty soon towards the end of the year, just to make sure that we kind of keep everything up to date and improving. And the last thing I'll say about this is that we are coordinating with state agencies, all state agencies, to keep adding new data sets all the time. And I think we're up to about 5 or 6 different state agencies that we are publishing data either on their behalf or federating their already published data. Up next, we have the activities that we do on broadband mapping. So this is we have this responsibility to map the state of broadband in the state of Connecticut as of PA 21-159. So the process goes, we collect data about availability and adoption from all of the internet service providers. We collate it and compare it to the FCC data on this topic, and then reaggregate it to the in the case of the availability data, we share it at the census block level, and in the case of the adoption data, we share that at the tract level due to privacy concerns and things like that. The map you're seeing here, kind of trying to twitch, is the comparison between July 2023 and December 2023, just to show the difference in how these things are changing. We are in the midst of a updated collection for this year, and we expect to have that map up here in the next few months. Next is slightly off topic for these guys, but what I will say is, so the State Historic Preservation Office has launched, with our help, a platform for showing all of the above ground cultural resources, and they also have a restricted viewer that lists all of the archaeological sites and underground cultural resources and things like that. If you want access to that, just get in touch with SHPO. And there are instructions for how to do that at the conference.ct.gov, like you see there. The other big deal that we've been doing is statewide parcels. So OPM is responsible for collecting parcel data from every municipality through the POGs on an annual basis since about 2019. As of last year's collection, that was the first time that we actually took all of that data and synthesized it into a single statewide seamless data set. So now you can pull up that data set or the property viewer and look for and search and find information about any parcel in the entire state, from Kent to Stonington. It doesn't matter. They're all there. The only exception for the 2023 data is Canaan did not provide any assessor information. I will say that in the 2024 collection, we did get that data. So we do anticipate of having all 169 towns in the parcel data set with current, at the very least, current assessment data for the 2024 update, which is a really big and important deal. And as you know, understanding who the ownership and that kind of information is really, really important in many, many situations. Anecdotally, the only thing I'll add about this data set, it is heavily used. We see about 20 to 22,000 queries per day on this data set. So to say that the synthesis of this data set was worth it is like undeniable. People are definitely using it. It has been called for, and people are starting to rely on it. And we look forward to seeing what people do with updated and better data. And as we improve the collection process, it will continue to improve further. The other big highlight is the aerial imagery acquisition. So back in 2022, we set out an RFP for 2 flights. I'm sure Dan has been keeping you up to date on that progress. We have since selected a vendor. They've flown and they've done most of the processing for the imagery. We are expecting, and we've already started receiving sections of the state that are completely final and final deliveries, and we are partnering with UConn to kind of get all of that hosted and served up. Of course, Dan will be receiving a copy so that you can integrate it into your various systems. One of the couple of things that I will point out is that we did choose to have true ortho imagery over all of the urban core areas and all of the tall bridges. So all of those will be aligned spatially exactly. And although, the collection happened more than a year ago at this point, part of the reason it's been taking so long to process is due to the fact that we asked for an incredibly high resolution, almost twice what the minimum standard is for the USGS at this level of precision. So because of all of that extra information, it has taken longer to produce, but the outcome and the data that we are going to be receiving is several orders of magnitude better than anything that we could have hoped for. In addition to that, we will be generating building footprints in both 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions for every structure in the state larger than 100 square feet. And we are in the process of doing a contract amendment to secure impervious surface, so pavement, sidewalks, etc., as well as potentially we are exploring the possibility of doing some transportation layers, but that part of it is still in flux. So some examples, as you can see here, on the left is kind of a sense of the quality of the ortho imagery. It is extremely sharp, since you can see what they're actually loading onto those submarines. The one in the middle is the near infrared imagery that came along with this, so that it really highlights vegetation, but then the orange boxes are the building footprints, and as you can see, they're very, very accurate. There were some challenges in some of the more tightly packed neighborhoods in the older urban cores like Bridgeport and New Haven and Hartford, with like merging buildings and things like that. But those are, the vendor's still working on them, and we expect them to come up with a viable solution to have a good thing. But the other thing to remember with this is that we are creating a baseline. There has been no statewide building footprints layer before. So, something is better than nothing, but we are trying to aim for the best that we can right off the bat. And then the last one here on the right is just the 3D terrain model, so that you can understand the terrain of the state. This is very, very granular. Each pixel is 2 feet on the ground. So once again, this is very, very highly accurate data, and several orders of magnitude better than anything that we've had before. And incidentally, we are the first state in the country to do it at this resolution, which is also why it's taking so long, because we're on the bleeding edge, as it were. And then finally, I'll just finish up with some statewide addressing information. So we are also, in the 2 years that we've been around, we've been working very closely with Dan to figure out and work with the state address point data set that he manages, primarily because we were trying to do the broadband mapping and we needed the best denominator possible. As we were going through that process, we realized that there were a lot of missing addresses in that, and we've been working together to kind of find the gaps. We were able to successfully get data extracts from the electric utilities, as well as the ISPs and any other credible sources, to kind of improve the address point data set. So currently, Dan's Deset data set has about 1.1 million, give or take, addresses. Our working address data set that we have in the GIS office has about 1.5 million addresses, but we're estimating that the real number of addresses in the state is closer to 1.8 million. With that, we are developing a plan to kind of more easily collect that information, in particular, like incremental changes from the local authorities, whether they're PSAPs or town clerks, or whoever records the changing of addresses at the municipal level, so that we can aggregate it and synthesize it and make the data set and maintain it to a much higher quality. And then in addition to that, we have been collaborating with both DSET and DOT to create a more spatially accurate and publicly shareable centerline layer that everyone can use, with the aim of improving both data sets to the point that we can create a public geocoder that everyone can use for free. And that concludes all of my updates. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Very exciting news. Looks like very high quality. This is John Alcesser. I do have a question, and you mentioned it, but I know the various council of governments are also updating their internal systems, and I'm hoping that there may be some cost savings to the COGS. If you already have that, I know the Capital Region Council of Governments is like on the verge, I think, of going out to do a major update, and it sounds like a lot of the information that they've transferred to you may be easier just to do a link to you. So I hope that those discussions are going on. I know at some point there's always these, well, we've had this is part of our responsibility, but certainly COGs have their lines and
Yes.
towns have their lines. And it's always important to know what happens on the other side of that line. So a statewide data set would be better. So you can see what goes beyond your local borders, even if it's the Council of Governments.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are in constant communication with all 9 councils of government. One thing I will add that we are actually leveraging last year's and this year's synthesized data to come up with a way to give grants to the municipalities through the COGS to improve the parcel data specifically, so that we can, accelerate the improvement path of that data set. So we are definitely in constant communications with both the COGS GIS staff and their executive directors to make sure that what we're doing is on the same page, we don't step on their toes, and that we do things in a collaborative manner. Sometimes they have a need to do their own thing because they want additional information and it doesn't make sense for us to provide.
Yep.
But largely, in most cases, they're like, this is great, we'll just use what you got. So, there's a bit of both here, and it just varies by situation.
Good to hear the coordination's going on. Clayton, did you have something?
No questions.
Anybody else? Again, great progress. Exciting to see this reaching usable data sets.
Mhm.
All right, I guess we can move on if there were no other questions. Of course, my agenda timed out. There we go. So the next item is emergency notification system.
Yeah, so Kevin had an emergency conflict and was unable to make it. So we emailed his update to the commission this morning.
Okay. So if you have questions on that update that was emailed out, probably go through Clayton to try to resolve those so you don't have to wait till the next meeting. So PSDN refresh.
Good morning, John and Commissioners. Chuck Fuller, Deset. Just going to give you an update on the PSDN refresh first. As everyone knows, the refresh is underway, and it's been underway for some time. It's a very extensive process. We have 3 phases of replacing the PSDN. As I mentioned in previous meetings, the PSDN is being refreshed because it's reached end of life, the product, the equipment, and we are replacing it and doing our due diligence to do it in 3 phases. The first phase deployment is the layer 3 on ring. We have 7 rings that are being or deployed. It's non-intrusive to any of the PSAPs, and that equipment has been deployed. But as everyone knows, we're also building a network management platform, a disaster recovery, and this new network is very extensive software-wise, API, application type of pushing methodology. And so it's underway. The first phase of rolling out the equipment to the on rings have been done. We've just been building the network apparatus in conjunction with that before we do any additional work. The second phase will be what we call our brownfield, which are our municipalities and cities and towns that are utilizing the public safety data network to their disposal for their particulars. So that phase will be coming and rolling out, but we have not turned up the layer 3 apparatus on ring. A few weeks ago, we ran into an issue with our API deployment on configuring multiple components. And it's not a game stopper, so to speak. We could have rolled out the network and started our pilot testing, but we decided to go back to our network vendor to get an enhancement put into the network before we moved on. They agreed to work that out. It wasn't a big issue, but it was something we needed because the other alternative would have been doing most of that deployment and acknowledgement of multiple devices in a more manual way. And this is not what we chose to build this network on. So that enhancement is due to us next week, and it's been tested in the vendor's lab. We're going to be testing it in ours. And from that, once the tests are confirmed, we're going to start our actual pilot program, which consists of 8 locations. 7 are PSAPs, and the very first will be a Deset because we have a AT&T platform there where we can test some things. So that's where we stand with the deployment on the PSDN. Also, letting everyone know this is some additional information for all of our PSAPs and customers that actually ride the PSDN, that all of the work that's been done, as I mentioned, is non-intrusive. But once we get to the point of testing after these pilots, DSET in conjunction with our network control management folks and such will be sending out some communications to let the PSAPs know when everything will take place. So we're gathering more information on contacts. So if anyone out there in the field, has any new changes that we may not have, please direct any contact information to the DSET staff so that we can update who to communicate with. That's it on the refresh. If there's any questions, I'll take them.
Any questions on a refresh? Guess we can move on to PSAP updates.
I will take that, John. The PSAP updates this week, I believe Tuesday, the 16th, we will finally be moving North Branford into their new facilities. So we will be actually going out and disrupting the ring and moving them physically from their old building to the new building. Process that we do many times a year when new facilities are built for PDs or municipalities, and that will happen for North Branford this Tuesday, the 16th. It looks like all the ducks are in a row with all of the partners and vendors, and that should be completed as of sometime Tuesday. Just an update on the next PSAP that will be moving, Wallingford. That should take place sometime in October, end of the year. Same thing, they're building a new facilities, and we will be moving them as well. And Windsor Locks will also be moving. They're building a new facilities, but that will take place sometime in 25.
Is
That's
UConn
my
all set?
UConn we have a meeting with UConn next week. Their electrical issues are, still being addressed, and we're working with them to make sure that that process moves. But they're pretty set as far as not returning to their original dispatch center. They're going to stay on the second floor, but there's some other things that we're working with them, John.
Thank you. Any other questions for Chuck? Thank you, as always.
Thank you.
We can move on to Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security.
Good morning, Commission. Bill Turner, State Emergency Management Director. I'll be providing our update for our division this morning. Just try to highlight, we have a lot going on, but don't want to take up too much time. Just some of the big things we have going on. I think everybody's aware it's been pretty hot. It looks like we're about to enter our 3rd heat wave on Sunday. So just because we're working through it now, it looks like we'll be activating our extreme heat protocol again on Sunday through Wednesday of next week. It seems we're stuck in this hot and humid pattern, and unfortunately, our forecasters, as many of you have seen, are calling for a pretty scary hurricane forecast this season. So we'll be doing a lot of efforts on our end in a couple weeks here, convening all of our emergency support functions and state EOC partners and stakeholders, as well as the towns, just to talk about hurricane preparedness and making sure everybody is ready as we go into peak hurricane season, which for us is a little bit later in the season, although we are actively in hurricane season. And as we've seen with Beryl, historic storm there, Cat 5 developing in June is just unprecedented. So, or that time of year. So we're keeping an eye on things, not trying to sound the alarm, but we want to make sure that we're ready in the event that this forecast pans out. One of the other topics we're really heavily focused on is election security as we gear up for the general election, the presidential election in November. We have a work group that meets monthly to talk about election security topics. One of the things relevant for this group that I'll be talking more about with you, Clayton, is we want to make sure that we get a list of the polling places out to all the PSAPs so that they're aware. They may already have it, but with the changes in voting, the voting process here in Connecticut and how that's going to work with early voting, it's not just one day of polling places being open, but they'll be open in some cases, I believe, up to 2 weeks before Election Day so that people can go and vote early. So there'll be a lot more activity at those polling places. So we want to make sure everybody's aware that where those locations are in the event something occurs at a polling place. Let me see here. So we've recently completed our federally evaluated hostile action base drill for the Millstone Nuclear Power Station. We're working through the AAR with FEMA and the evaluators, but so far everything is looking pretty good there. There's a big push to get us away from sirens. Dominion Energy, who owns Millstone, has been successful in other parts of the country where they've retired the sirens and have pushed the alerting over primarily to the wireless emergency alerts. So we're next on the list. We're working through the process to retire the sirens and move over to WIA. The holdup right now is Fisher's Island, which is New York, but we are responsible for some of the planning, is interested in keeping their sirens, and we're just working out some details to figure out what we need to do to basically keep them pleased with the process and be able to fully retire those sirens in the coming years. Working with Clayton's team and Deset on some internal 911 outage procedures and planning, taking some of the lessons learned from what happened up in Massachusetts, and just making sure that we're all on the same page in the event we experience something similar here in Connecticut. And then just a couple new softwares we'll be rolling out. We have a grants management software called Civics that'll be shifting all of our FEMA preparedness grants onto. I mentioned that because there may be some opportunity for Clayton's team as well to jump on board. We're kind of the test case, but we'll see how it goes. It's not unique just to FEMA grants. We really can use it for any type of grants, but really to streamline the process of how we do grants, get away from paper and just make it more efficient for our end users, which are usually our towns or our PSAPs. And lastly, we're rolling out crisis track damage assessment software. Again, common theme here, trying to make things more efficient, get away from the paper, and make the process of doing damage assessment after a disaster as easy as possible through a mobile application and get that reporting done quicker. As you heard Alfredo mentioned, thanks to that data that he talked about, that statewide parcel data, we were able to get that up and running a lot quicker rather than the vendor having to work with each town to get their parcel data, because it does integrate the tax assessment data to determine damages and cost, which is going to be really nice. So we're excited to get that up and running later this summer. And I think, as a lot of people have mentioned, it's a lot of special events going on. So we continue to support those special events with CERT and MRC activations, as well as resources as requested, as we're in the summer season and then lead into the fair season as we get into the late summer and early fall. So a lot going on in Demis. I'm sure I only scratched the surface, but I want to be mindful of time and be glad to take any questions if anybody has them. So,
any questions for Bill? Quiet group today. Thank you very much, Bill. We can move on then to FirstNet update.
Yeah, so thanks. I'll just do a quick update. So the biggest issue that's going on with FirstNet right now, I'm sure many folks on the call are aware, is they're trying to get the 4.9 gigahertz spectrum allocated to FirstNet. It's pretty controversial right now. Connecticut has stayed on top of the issue. I've been in touch with Connecticut leadership, and I've been keeping DESPP leadership involved too. There's a lot of industry groups that are taking one side or another. To date, as far as I know, Connecticut is staying completely impartial and neutral on this topic. But if anybody has any questions about it, just shoot me an email or get in touch with me, and I'll fill you in on what I know so far. But that's pretty much the biggest update that I have for FirstNet.
Great, thank you. Department of Public Health, Ralph? Hi. You're muted.
Oh, I know. I was
There
trying
you
to
go.
get it off. I'm sorry. Good morning, all. Raffaella Calciano, Director of Emergency Medical Services for the Department of Public Health. I only have one item to report on, and that is our annual data report that is in the process. It's been done and it's waiting to be approved by the administration. And once it is, I will be sharing it with the commission probably next meeting. And that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Any questions?
Okay, well,
Hearing
thank
none.
you very much. Stay
Thank you
cool,
very much.
everybody, and enjoy the Sail Fest if you're there.
Okay, we can move on to 988.
Good morning, everybody. Dana Began from Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. 988 is our nationwide suicide and crisis prevention line. It's operated by the United Way of Connecticut. We are continuing to get a steady flow of calls to 988. We get approximately 3,500 to 4,500 calls per month coming into that line. 96 to 97% of those calls are answered between 4 and 6 seconds. You might wonder what happens to the other 3 to 4% of calls. Those calls typically are hang-up calls that aren't available to be answered because the caller hangs up before it can be answered. We also, United Way of Connecticut also started answering chats and texts to 988 starting in February of this year. And we're gradually seeing an increase in those chats and texts. In June, we had almost 130 combined. There were about 37 chats and 88 texts. Primarily, the demographics of chats and texts are young adults, ages 25 and younger, predominantly female, which we just find to be interesting statistics. Those are being answered anywhere from 90 to 97% are answered in about 10 seconds or so. Average handle time for those chats and texts are anywhere from 50 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes. Couple data points to note is that in terms of our 988 calls, 94% of our crisis calls are resolved telephonically, which means that the call taker is able to resolve the person's crisis just by talking to them on the phone, providing resources, etc. About 5% of crisis calls end up getting transferred to one of our mobile crisis teams. And 1% or less of crisis calls end up with an active rescue, which is a transfer to 911. So 99% of our calls are resulting in not in active rescue and not in 911, which is pretty incredible. We do also have another adult crisis line in Connecticut called our Action Line. That line gets about 5,500 calls per month. And the child crisis line gets about 1,000 calls per month. So with all three lines combined, 988, the adult crisis line and the child crisis line, we're looking at around 10 to 12,000 calls per month. So statistically speaking, having 1% or less of those going to an active rescue is really impressive. So we're very proud of that. We are also having a 988 day of action next week on Tuesday. Some folks, some from our federal partners from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration will be coming to join us. We'll be having that at the United Way Contact Center in Rocky Hill. It's just kind of to raise awareness and to ensure that folks are familiar with and knowing that they can reach out to 988 if they're in crisis. That's really the high level overview, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to take it.
Dana, I have one. There seems to be a lot of movement now on really advertising a separate veterans line. And I guess I'm hoping that you can kind of fill me in out of curiosity of whether that should be better embraced within the 988 because it's an easier number to remember. And is there pushback from it, or how they're handled?
So the veterans line has always been in existence. It's completely separate from 988. It's operated by the Veterans Administration, so it's a federal organization. But if somebody calls, if they call 211, if they call 988, all crisis calls are centralized and answered by the United Way of Connecticut. So there really is no wrong door. There is a voice prompt that will say, if you are a veteran, press such and such a number, and that connects them to the veterans line. Or they have the choice not to. They can just call 988 and utilize the 988 contact center specialists. So it's really at the caller's discretion what number they want to call. And certainly 988 is getting about 200 calls a month from veterans. So there are individuals that are choosing to call 988 as opposed to the designated veterans line.
Right,
and there will definitely be more promotion and more advertisement of 988. It won't necessarily target veterans specifically, but it will. It's just generally and broadly anyone who's experiencing a mental health or a substance use crisis can call this number.
All right, thank you for educating me.
Sure.
Any questions?
Hi, it's Carrie. I don't have a question. I just have a comment. Those are impressive numbers, Dana. So thank you for that report. It's very interesting and helpful. Kudos to you and your team. 99%. Those are great numbers. That's really, I'm happy to hear that. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Carrie.
Anyone else? I think we're done with the report section of the agenda and move on to new business. Is there any new business today? Hearing no one for new business, we have the opportunity for public comment.
John, Bob Guthrie, just one thing.
Yep.
So I spoke to Clayton a while ago, and obviously we as a commission don't recognize it, but I certainly like to recognize a dispatcher from West Haven, Rich Standish, who retired after 47 years of dispatching with one agency. So 47 years as a dispatcher, 47 years with one employer is certainly something to be recognized.
Certainly is. A lot of wisdom.
John, it's Scott.
Hi, Scott.
I'd like to echo that. I worked with that particular dispatcher when I was in West Haven back in the 80s and remember him fondly from those days. So It'll be a tremendous loss to the West Haven system.
Would it be appropriate for the commission to just send a notice of recognition? Clayton, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. We will support that any way we can. It's completely up to the commission.
Would anyone like to make a motion on that?
Be able to get a citation from like the governor's office. I think that or from his, state representative or senator. I think that would be much more. I mean, we could also send a citation from the commission, but I think, a citation from the government would be 47 years in one position and doing that hard work. I think needs recognition further than just a little statement from us.
And Ralph, just so you're aware of it, we do have a citation coming from the governor from his state representative. It will be presented to him July 22nd at his retirement party.
Right, well, then I make a motion that our commission join in and write a letter of recognition and acknowledgement for this gentleman, because I think that that's just astounding. 47 years, that's unheard of.
He probably predates this commission. So Clayton, maybe you and I can work on that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Someone give Clayton the information he needs.
Yes, I'll email you the address shortly.
All right.
Yeah, thank you very much. Anything else for today?
Do we need an official vote on that motion I just made?
I think we can take that as a consensus, unless anyone wants to take a formal vote.
No, I just wanted to make sure we're following our rules. That's all.
If anyone feels we should take a vote, I'm open to that and then make a motion. But I think a consensus should be sufficient. Hearing none, consensus it is. So any other public comment? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Ralph Calciano, motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ralph. Is there a second?
Bob Guthrie, second.
Thank you, Bob. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. I'm always amazed at what progress we make in between our meetings. And I think the pace of progress is increasing as we deal with new technology. So thank you all for your work on behalf of the safety of the citizens of Connecticut. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Meeting is adjourned.